Coiner. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Price.
Yes, speaking to the bill, Madam Speaker.
Delegate Price, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You put me in a very interesting position this year where I was unsure how it would go, but I believe it went really well. And that is when you appointed me as the chair of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee for the Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committee. And one of the things that has happened, I believe, is that we have heard more from the community that is directly impacted by our policy decisions than I can remember in a while. I am also happy and proud to serve on the Deeds Commission, where some of these financial challenges we have had to discuss because of the pandemic. And I also serve on the Public Safety Committee, where we talk about how we want to keep our communities safe. So the work that I have been able to do this year, all of those things kind of come together and show a need for this bill. So I appreciate that this bill is broad enough to allow localities to handle the needs that are presented in their own community. So something that needs to be addressed in Newport News may not be the exact same in the western part or even the northern part of the state. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate when we have to talk about the cost. But I just heard one of the most eloquent defenses of a bill. And when my good friend Delegate Born was discussing the cost, he discussed the social cost that communities are experiencing when people are killed. And this bill is about saving lives. So yes, we have some difficult decisions ahead of us for the budget, but as having been a part of a town hall with the ARC, having spoken to some of the private folks that are on the ground and want to be included in this work, having spoken to representatives from the CSBs, from advocates, other advocates, families that have been impacted by the murder of their family members in honor of Marcus David Peters, and because of my own loved ones that have a different experience, that their situation was escalated because of the presence of police in uniforms. And in addition to the bill that we just passed that includes substance use disorders, mental health issues, and developmental disorders, developmental disorders and intellectual disabilities. I apologize if I use the wrong term, still learning. But that is included in the training that we've already passed that bill. So that is coming. But the very presence of a police officer can escalate. And that is when other people need to be able to do their job. So I've seen the memes, I've seen the jokes that when people are being shot, oh, let's call a social worker. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about allowing for professionals that do this work every day to be able to do this work in a different way and save lives. And it is for that reason that I am proud to support the work behind this bill, the people behind this bill and this legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Price. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the bill.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So as many of you know, I'm a criminal prosecutor. I've spent 14 years in the courtroom as both a prosecutor as well as a defense attorney, both civil and criminal. And this morning, I had a case of assault and battery on a law enforcement officer. This was an individual who was very clearly going through an extraordinary crisis in that person's life. And officers responded in a way that I would hope would not happen again. And as a result, this individual struck and hurt an officer, and that officer was hurt. Hearing from Delegate Coiner, I understand the experience that she has gone through in her family, and I appreciate that because I know that it comes from an honest and earnest place. And I understand that many are concerned that we will lack in public safety. But I can tell you this, that after 14 years in the courtroom, we have criminalized mental health issues, and we have criminalized addiction. And so much of the work that we have been doing today and in the days preceding this has been to reverse 30 years of over-criminalization. And so this bill does a small step in making sure that individuals who are in crisis are not treated as criminals. And so I would hope that all here would support this bill.
Thank you, Delegate Mullen. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to speak to the bill.
Delegate Sickles, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to assure the body that HB5043 is an affordable bill that we can pay for this year. We've looked at it closely, and the money in the current year in 21 will be to organize this. There'll be plenty of time for people to weigh in on how it should be done. It's time to try new approaches. There's a lot that has happened under Step Virginia. Virginia has not really stood out in the nation for our approach to mental health. We have a lot to do to make sure that we have mental health services in every corner of this Commonwealth, which we do not now. This is one more way that we can look at how to approach a very complicated problem with human beings. And there will be, I believe there needs to, every police officer needs to understand mental health better than all of us do. They really need to be trained in that, and I'm glad we passed a bill to have uniform training across the Commonwealth. But this bill will give us a chance to work at this, work together with all that's going on across the state and Step Virginia and all the CSPs to approach crisis intervention in a different way. So I hope it's the pleasure of the body to support this bill.
Thank you, Delegate Sickles. The delegate from Richmond City, Delegate Born.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the bill.
Delegate Born, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I know the hour is late and stomachs are probably empty, as mine is, but I do just want to talk about House Bill 5043. This was brought about by a tragedy. A young black man was shot and killed when clearly he was undergoing a severe mental health crisis. If you watch, I believe that the body cam video has been released. It's horrific to watch. But I want to address sort of how we've gotten here. The bill as originally introduced was much broader, is much more aggressive, but understanding and living in the real world, we had to make some concessions. Much to the chagrin of my stakeholder group that I've been working with for months now, and much to my own chagrin. But let me tell you what kind of protections this bill does have in it to address some of the concerns that have been raised. One, there's a time period between passage or signature and implementation where the stakeholders supported, led by behavioral health and criminal justice services will develop a plan by June 1. There's a hard date in there that tells how they're going to implement it. Two, it goes live on July 1. And to the extent that anyone in this chamber is worried that we're not going to have checks and balances along the way to a statewide implementation, I would submit that the bill language does include reporting deadlines, the first of which is going to be on November of 2022. Basically, it'll be an interim report after a year of implementation. And I pushed for that date because I wanted us to have enough time between the interim report and the start of the 2023 session to be able to address any gaps or any strengthening or resources that we needed to address as soon as practical. Third, I think Delegate from Newport News hit the nail on the head when we said we have spent years criminalizing mental health. It's been referred to that we're locking these people up, and I will tell you that this is a bill that can help stop that. And to suggest that we're going to have to wait for law enforcement to get there, I think is just wrong. Because most of these calls are going to come through on 911. The officer is going to be the first to respond. And I think that the idea is to get mental health professionals there so that they can help, and so that, as the other delegate from Newport News stated, that the presence of an officer in uniform, the presence of a police cruiser, is not an exacerbating event. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have done a lot of good work over the last several years around mental health, but we still have a long way to go. And I would submit that this bill is now a measured, accountable, and responsible approach to implementing this alert system. And that's exactly what it will be, is an alert system whereby when someone's in mental health crisis, the intellectual disabilities, developmental issues can be addressed and responded to in the appropriate fashion with the appropriate people. There's going to be a broad collection of stakeholders that are going to come together and put the best product forward. And so hopefully in a few short years, we will have a statewide system so that we don't have any more tragedies like we saw in Richmond, or as a delegate from Prince William spoke so eloquently about yesterday on the floor. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to urge everyone to vote yes on this.
Thank you, Delegate Born. Shall the bill pass? Madam Clerk.
I'll call the names of those I don't yet see voting. Delegate Adams, LR.
Delegate Adams votes no.
Delegate Adams votes nay. Delegate Austin. Delegate Edmonds.
Delegate Edmonds votes nay.
Delegate Edmonds votes nay. Delegate O'Quinn. Delegate Wampler. And Delegate Wright is absent.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 39, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 39, abstentions 0. The bill passes.